Hi, today we learn how to review a non compete clause for a Canadian startup founder. Imagine you're working remotely as a paralegal for a Canadian law firm and you get this assignment. A Toronto based founder is concerned because an early employee has started working with a competitor. You ask for a copy of the employee's contract and see the following clause. During the term of this agreement, or for 3 years after its termination, the employee shall not start any new business which is identical or similar or otherwise competes with the services provided by the startup or work with a competitor in any capacity. Is this clause valid? To determine validity, we look to Ontario's Employment Standards Act. Here it is on your screen. The link to this is also pasted in the description box so that you can refer to it later. Ontario law prohibits non compete clauses in employment agreements except in limited circumstances, such as 1. If the person leaving is a C suite executive, for example, CFO, CEO. 2. If it's part of a sale of business agreement. In this case, if the employee is not a C suite executive, the clause is likely invalid. How does this differ from Indian law? In India, non compete clauses after employment termination are considered a restraint of trade under Section 27 of the Contract Act and are generally enforceable. However, Indian courts may uphold narrow clauses if they seem reasonable. Canadian law, in contrast, is more black and white, especially in Ontario, where recent legislation has clarified restrictions. Now imagine the same Canadian startup founder is selling the business. The potential acquirer inserts this clause. For 3 years after the business is sold, the founder shall not start any new business which is identical or similar, or otherwise competes with the services provided by the acquirer, or work with a competitor in any capacity. Will this clause be valid? Look at the exception. Yes, because Ontario law allows non compete clauses in sale of business agreements, unlike in employment contracts. What if you're asked to draft a non compete clause for a PR agency working with a Canadian startup? Ontario's prohibition applies only to employment agreements. It does not apply to contracts between businesses. For example, this clause. For the duration of this agreement and for 6 months after its termination, the PR agency shall not start or work with any new business which is identical or similar or otherwise competes with the business of the client company. Now, this clause is valid because it is between independent businesses, not an employee and employer. Imagine knowing how to review non compete clauses for clients across 10 countries. Here are a couple of international projects on review of non compete clauses on Upwork. 80% of contract drafting work is similar worldwide, giving you a huge advantage. With 1.2 million small businesses in Canada and over 33 million in the US, cost effective legal assistance is in high demand. Here is how much money lawyers make in the US in a year as on 2018. It is only more now, not less. Here is what Canadian lawyers earn on average. And here are the salaries that UK lawyers earn. Even freelancers in these countries cost more than 200 to 500 per hour in US dollars. In India, if a lawyer earns even 1000 US dollars per month, it will be considered pretty high. Most lawyers cannot get there even after years of practice. These businesses cannot afford full time legal teams due to high local salaries, so they look for remote professionals like you. Let's look at the numbers. US has 4,50,000 law firms with 1,60,000 firms having fewer than 20 lawyers. In Canada, there are 1,36,000 lawyers, 57,000 of whom are in Ontario. UK 2.2 lakh solicitors with 1,60,676 actively practicing. These businesses need 2 to 10 remote paralegals annually to reduce costs and stay competitive. Beyond traditional businesses, startups in AI, blockchain, Web3, SaaS, fintech, edtech, and e commerce are booming. These industries require affordable legal services for drafting contracts, and their demand is growing rapidly. Remote paralegals in countries like India have a unique cost advantage to serve these startups. Want to learn how to review and draft non compete clauses and other critical contracts for international clients? Join our free 3-day bootcamp for detailed guidance. It's live, online, and spans 9 hours over the weekend. No recordings will be available, so set a reminder now. We'll see you there.